It was early in the morning when Sister Hospitala Verita Kern walked tiredly towards the meeting point she obtained from Neandra. They were both members of Inquisitor Thaberus Thorn's retinue and had an amicable relationship within his mini-inquisitorial warband. Generally, be it infiltration or taking out critical targets, Neandra would be tasked with the most critical aspect of the missions, whereas Verita would fix up any of their members who suffered injuries during their mission. It was also Verita's job to fix the occasional interrogation subjects to prolong the interview session when needed. It was a grim duty that she had answered fully with all her talents. Behind her were 3 servitors carrying the luggage of the mysterious individual SYRINE. As Verita turned a corner, she recognized Neandra's silhouette in the distance. The way the assassin stood signaled her to wish to talk, probably for a short mission briefing. "Nyan," Verita called out. Neandra nodded, acknowledging her colleague before replying. "Took you long enough." Verita sighed. "Complications with the luggage contents." "Really? With that little amount of stuff?" Neandra looked behind Verita, evidently not impressed by the paltry amount of material present. When the rich and powerful people of the Imperium moved between worlds, it was not uncommon for their personal necessities amounting to what looks like a whole month's worth of supplies for an Astra Militarum battalion. "So? What is the deal with our little miracle lady?" Verita asked. "She is a complicated case. While she seems cordial enough, do tread lightly with her." "But you are here," Verita scoffed. "Listen," Neandra cautioned and whispered, "if for any reason she went rogue, I am not sure I can stop her." Verita almost gasped at that statement. Her impassive face turned serious for the first time in the conversation. Working alongside Neandra for decades, Verita was well aware of her capabilities, so much so with the latter around as of this moment not even the sudden appearance of a heretical Astartes would faze Verita much. "Throne, are you jesting?" Neandra did not reply as she never joked about work. "Come on, tell me more. No one has ever mentioned anything about her being able to best you in combat?" Verita pressed. "No, she wasn't much of a fighter from what I had observed." "Then?" Neandra contemplated for a while before finally answering. "Truthfully speaking, I am not sure. But somehow I have a feeling that if it reaches that point things will not be easy or pretty because I cannot get a proper gauge on her capabilities nor her personality." "You are making this scary now," Verita protested. "Let's go." The assassin signaled the sister to follow. They walked a short distance before arriving at the room where SYRINE had spent her night. Neandra stopped to look at Verita again, her expression reading try not to offend her, making the latter gulp at how serious the assassin was approaching this assignment. Just as Neandra was about to knock on the door, something triggered her instinct to jump back. A split second later a thunderous low thud could be heard coming from the room. Verita let out a small yelp at the sudden development and moved away from the door. They stayed silent for a while, standing completely still looking at the door. Finally, Neandra moved slowly towards the door. She produced a spying device, pushed it on the door and listened. A moment later, satisfied with whatever she heard, the assassin knocked on the door and slowly opened it. The room had a typical interior set up for an important guest. Inside the room she saw a girl with platinum straight hair sitting on a huge bed. She was hugging her legs, head on her knees as if in some sort of agony. "SYRINE?" Neandra asked. The girl turned her head and looked at the assassin before replying in a dreamy tone. "Neandra? Morning to you. Are you hurt or anything?" "No, I was just upset. I still can't recall most of my memories. My colleague is here with your belongings and she will provide you with a basic medical examination." Neandra signaled Verita to enter. The latter entered the room hesitantly with the 3 servitors behind who put down the luggage bags then left. Neandra observed SYRINE seemed to flinch at the sight of the servitors, but her expression was so subtle even with her transhuman perception she could not be sure about it. Servitors are mindless humanoids of flesh and metal used to carry out simple, manual tasks. They can be either made of mind-wiped humans or the vat-grown variants. Servitors are programmed and cybernetically enhanced to serve some specific, rudimentary function and are ubiquitous throughout the Imperium. Considering most Imperial subjects wouldn't even spare servitors an extra glance, the whole observation just came out as odd for the assassin, further reinforcing her own assessment of being unable to read SYRINE properly. Then there was the room itself. One side of the wall had a few paintings that fell off and were on the floor. Neandra was sure that was not the case when she did a quick sweep of the room yesterday. Other details she noticed that were out of place was a toppled flower vase and a single bolster pillow on the floor. Neandra walked over, picked it up and took a closer look at it. On one side of the pillow the fabric appeared to be torn, suggesting the sleeping aid had been subjected to some brutal surface impact force. "You threw this?" Neandra asked. "Sorry," SYRINE said as she buried her face on her knees. "I did that just now when I realized my memories did not return after I woke up. This is Sister Verita, she also works for Inquisitor Thaberus." Ever the professional, Neandra pushed forward her agenda of the day. Verita stepped forward and performed the sign of Aquila. "Well met, Lady SYRINE," the Hospitaller said. SYRINE gave the Hospitaller an apprehensive look before getting off her bed and properly returning the Aquila sign. "Please, just call me SYRINE," she said before talking in a resigned tone. "Sister Verita, I have to inform you in advance of an issue which I believe Neandra knew as much already." She paused for a while before saying her next words slowly. "I am not a normal human." Verita did a quick exchange of glances with Neandra upon hearing that statement. The latter indicated she should proceed with the planned examination, so Verita pressed forward despite having her own doubts. "Perhaps let me do a standard medical examination first?" SYRINE did not reply but continued to look at the Hospitaller. This was the first time they made direct eye contact, and suddenly Verita understood why her colleague of many years warned her beforehand of this meeting. Sister Hospitaller Verita Kern was not your typical citizenry of the Imperium. To put it into perspective, "the ordinary has nothing to do with anything off-world" was a common saying within the Empire, as almost all of the mundane masses of the massive Empire will never step foot upon a starship in their entire life, let alone travel between worlds and different star systems. In terms of exposure to the worldliness of what the galaxy has to offer, Verita Kern had seen enough to be ranked amongst the elite within the masses of humanity. In her line of duty, Verita had traveled to various star systems and frequently works in the presence of individuals who have the power to drop death sentences on an entire planet's population. Due to the unavoidable sinister nature of Thaberus' work, she had seen enough behind-the-scene workings of the Inquisition to drive most of the ordinary citizens mad. Verita herself had garnered enough clearance level over the years to receive briefings on the dangers of chaos sorcery and demonic entities to know these were no fairy tales. Even the Emperor's mighty space marines, which some of the more backward agricultural world masses worshipped as angels of death, had lost their mythical appeal to her as she learned more and more about them in her line of work. Verita sometimes wonders how those masses would react if she had told them she personally had cut apart some of the space marines who had turned renegade and at this point had seen enough of these angels dead in the interrogation chamber for her to even care. So when the worldly Verita locked eyes with SYRINE, she found it strange her level of unease rising rapidly despite the latter showing no sign of malice in demeanor. It was as if just having SYRINE's full attention was enough to intimidate her. This experience reminded Verita of the time when she was on the verge of a panic breakdown when she met a transhuman space marine in person for the first time. The symptom of ordinary humans experiencing a high level of unease just by meeting a space marine was actually quite common. They call it transhuman phobia. One would not know this without ever experiencing it firsthand, but meeting an Astartes in real life was far from a pleasant experience. From an unaugmented human's point of view, a transhuman is stronger, faster and generally smarter than you before even considering their usually far superior equipment. To look directly at a transhuman Astartes would mean the understanding of one's total inferiority and near total helplessness against them. Such realization could trigger a sense of survival crisis response at the primal level. Severe cases would render sufferers of said phobia to be non-functional in the presence of any transhuman. But her tendency to suffer from an episode of transhuman phobia was so long ago, it was bewildering that her instinct was giving her all the warnings not to slip up now. It was then Verita noticed SYRINE was not looking at her but passed through her, and then Neandra's voice called out, "Someone is coming." "There are 3 of them, one is wearing power armor," SYRINE added casually. Verita felt surprised by that statement. She knew Neandra was operating on a sensory level much higher than a normal human. In fact, so far Verita had heard nothing at all which hinted on people coming their way, much less about being able to discern one of them was equipped with power armor. "Are you expecting guests?" Neandra asked and started tapping into a small data slate. "Not that I remember." SYRINE shrugged. "The record shows representatives of Adeptus Sororitas landed just moments ago." said Neandra after consulting a security log from somewhere. Via an Aquila lander. I recognized these, added SYRINE suddenly with a seemingly misplaced sense of enthusiasm. Are you talking with the machine spirits again? Replied a rarely flustered Neandra. Please restrain yourself from casually showing off your unusual talents. Arg, I am sorry. We'll observe these in future. SYRINE apologized by putting her palms together and doing a slight bow. It appeared almost comical to Verita, but she was unable to laugh. Neandra was right, she thought. Even the worldly Verita could not discern what was actually going on underneath SYRINE's weird antics. A while later a knock sounded at the door. Neandra answered it and 3 sororitas entered as predicted. Good to see you again, Palatine Alisaya. SYRINE cheerfully greeted the power-armored sister leading the party. Behind Alisaya were 2 more sisters but of the non-militant orders. One was another Hospitaller, the other appeared to be a learned scholar of the Adepta Sororitas. Revered lady, Alisaya bowed and asked, how is the situation with your memory? I have spoken with my order. They would like to confirm your identity. About that, SYRINE said apologetically, not much progress. What do you need from me? The scholar-looking sister stepped forward, formed her Aquila sign and spoke. Greetings, I am Wellman of the Dialogus Order. We humbly request your cooperation. On that statement, SYRINE took a look at all the guests in her room before saying, very well, I would like to know for certain myself too. Alone in a meeting room, I was sitting on a huge chair waiting for an arrangement from the Adeptus Mechanicus. My mind was rerunning the events that happened a few hours ago with perfect clarity. So the medical examination happened. I had my body scanned by the medical devices inside the fortress and the result was interesting, to say the least. Both the hospitallers went quiet after the preliminary scans revealed I had 2 hearts and a myriad of unknown organs inside my body, confirming my transhuman status. Head scans looking for brain damage were inconclusive as the core structure of my brain appeared different from that of a normal human. Verita's data slate was a property of the Inquisition and it was unable to access certain inquiries of the scan results, citing insufficient security clearance level. Acting on another hunch, I asked Verita if I could try to access the restricted information with the credentials on my pendant instead of looking for Thaberus' inquisitorial rosette, which would take a lot of time. You could certainly try, replied Verita with a stiff smile, so I did. After a few trials of figuring out how to do that, to everyone's surprise, I was able to bypass the restriction using my pendant. Comparing the scan results with the information within classified data revealed an organ called the immortis gland existing inside my brain. The information regarding this gland was highly guarded. In its entry there was but a line stating genetically engineered organ existing within the cerebral cortex of each of the primarchs with no additional information offered. Wellmana, the sister Dialogus who was among those present, started trembling after reviewing all the information. Her previously impassive demeanor melted away as she struggled to reconcile with the implications of what she saw, whereas Palatine Alisaya was the complete opposite. She was ecstatic of the result and wanted immediately to kneel before me again, but I stopped her. Well, I said, trying to diffuse the unpleasant atmosphere which was getting very serious, there might be a mistake and I would like a second opinion. But Neandra was having none of that, immediately ordering a complete data purge on all the medical devices and issuing a straight gag order on all those present. Representatives of the Adepta Sororitas left hastily after that, citing the need to report to their order urgently. Verita went somewhere, no doubt to report to Thaberus on the findings. Having nothing better to do, I went back to my room. Earlier Verita had handed over several huge solid-looking space-age luggage which had belonged to SYRINE. Or me. This is so weird. After fumbling with them for a while, I managed to unlock some only to find mostly clothing stuff inside. I guess girls are kind of the same whatever universe you are in, but I have to mention the quality of these clothing wear was out of this world. Even a total novice like me could tell by simply looking and feeling their texture. Incidentally, the white robes I was wearing all this time were of the same quality and never seemed to get dirty. Later I received news that a representative of Adeptus Mechanicus, probably working under Cryptora, was coming to see me and some arrangement requests were made in advance for the meeting. There was some time until the appointed hour, so I decided to take a quick bath since I had all my spare clothes and was in this attire for a full whole day already. During the brief shower, I found myself spacing out and was unable to look at the mirror. By the way, the toilet bowl was so solidly built I wondered if the ceramic used was the same type to be found on a Space Marine's armor. It felt sturdy enough to repel small arms fire. And there I was, bathed and changed to another piece of wardrobe for an unknown occasion. Sitting on a huge ornate chair in the assigned room alone, I finally had a quiet moment for myself. For the first time, I realized my senses could hear sounds and see details that should have been impossible for a normal human. When I looked with enough concentration, my vision could pick up the fine cracks on the ceiling, and I heard the footsteps of the Adeptus Mechanicus representative escorted by Neandra coming long before they reached the door. I am no longer human. The realization hit me like freezing water. By sensory data alone, I could even time the exact moment Neandra was about to knock on the door. "Come in," I said before Neandra knocked. The door opened and a tech priest entered with the assassin. The tech priest stepped forward, bowed and canted, "Lady SYRINE." I ran, Analytica, on him. The reading came back. Name, Dataliad Ving, post-human, tech priest. "Greetings. While I believe we have met before, you will have to excuse me. I recently suffered from amnesia and can't recall my past. I have heard, it is the will of Omnissiah. The eyes of the Omnissiah are ever upon us." "How should I address you?" "Just Dataliad." "So you do remember my name. I am honored." "Well, that was some easy brownie point." "Dominus Cycle wishes to confirm your current condition and converse with you, Lady SYRINE. He is currently tied down at the front lines preparing for a major engagement, so I am here to set up secured communication." Dominus Cycle must be how Cryptora's underlings addressed him. I nodded and the tech priest went to work, setting up a device he was carrying that was the size of a suitcase. A few moments later he was done. It came to life and a huge holographic projection of Cryptora flickered into existence. This scene was like the mirror image of a certain classic sci-fi movie scene when the Dark Lord was conversing with his master. "Crypto," I greeted the massive hologram. "Good to see you in good health and spirits, SYRINE. How is your condition now?" The Dominus canted. "About the same, but I seem to recall some distant memory during my dream in my sleep." "Unfortunate, but this might take time. Dataliad, secure the site. I have confidential matters to discuss with the princess." Moments later, I was alone again in the meeting room, but this time with an active hologram of Cryptora talking to me. He had formed up with the sisters and the planetary governor, then surveyed the situation on the front. After doing so, he had come up with a plan to resolve the conflict as soon as possible. No doubt it was because he wanted to quickly get to whatever new toys he found behind the blast door in the activation chamber. "Before we start," I said while holding up a hand, "tell me what you know about me and what we are doing on this planet." Cryptora tilted his head slightly upon hearing my question, but proceeded to answer after a slight pause. "You are a direct creation by the physical manifestation of Omniscia himself, dating back from 10,000 years ago. We were on a secretive sacred expedition here to activate a psychic beacon to prevent this whole sector from being swallowed up by the impending events." "What is the origin of this psychic beacon?" "Undisclosed." "How can you be so sure about my credentials?" I asked. I had personally verified that. Your DNA, the hyper-advanced level of your transhumanity, the Primarch-grade internal organs inside you, and the Imperial authority you wield, all that is without a doubt from the apex of Imperium. Did I ever mention anything about what we were supposed to do after the beacon's activation? I decided to risk it with such a question, banking on his current willingness to talk. "Unfortunately, no. You were supposed to reveal that after we assessed the situation, and you promised me access to the technology inside the vault," Cryptora replied. "One last question," I said while taking out my Aquila pendant. "What is this, and why was I able to take control over certain functions in the Inquisitor's gunship?" "To my knowledge, from what you revealed before, that would be the Imperial Authority Rosette. If we think of the standard Inquisitorial Rosette as the key to open all Imperial doors, yours would be a master key. With it and your unique physiology, almost all Imperial standard cogitators and machine spirits in service will recognize you as an administrative-level user. It also contains an advanced microconversion field emitter that provides a reinforced energy protection field." Cryptora's word brought me back to the time when I somehow survived direct grenade hits unscathed back then, when Alicia tried to shield me with her body. Thinking back, there were weird light flashes happening when the grenade impacted on top of us, so That was the conversion field that saved me. I had received the report of the Flame Raven attack incident. Rest assured the perpetrators will be uncovered and punished accordingly. Praise the Omnissiah, you still retained access to your authority, but kindly allow me to verify your current capacity to utilize it. He then proceeded to put 3 skull probes into view. Please, see if you can control these via the communication link. I specially prepared these to verify the viability of our stratagems for the upcoming major engagement. So, he received reports from Thaberus, and from there he already deduced I can use my authority to access machine spirit. Very well. I closed my eyes, focused my mental attention on my pendant, and reached out for any cybernetic connection. Accessing. 1. Responding machine spirit within the vicinity. 3. Responding cogitators via communication link #networked. Connect? Yes/no++. Cogitators are the term for computers in this universe, so I can directly access them as well. Interesting. Connect me to all 3 cogitators on the communication link. Accessing cogitators via communication link ++. Connection accepted. Connection accepted. Connection accepted. I opened my eyes and willed the probes to fly. They lifted and hovered in the air. Hey, this is kind of fun. I proceeded and had them fly circles around Cryptora, and to my own amazement I could actually simultaneously control all 3 probes with ease. Very good, Cryptora remarked. Now, a real test if you please. Kindly land the probes and we will proceed to the next phase. So I did as told and waited. Cryptora worked on a data slate and a new scene flicked into existence from the holographic projector. It was a composite of multiple scenes featuring military-looking outposts. Please see if you can connect to these, said Cryptora. Is this a drill or? I looked at the Dominus and he was waiting on me eagerly, so I closed my eyes and tried again. Accessing. 1. Responding machine spirit within the vicinity. 15. Responding cogitators via communication link #networked. Connect? Yes/no++. Yes to all 15 cogitators on the communication link. Accessing cogitators via communication link ++. Connection accepted. Connection accepted. Connection accepted. Connection accepted. Connection accepted. They all responded. I am connected. I opened my eyes and informed him. Excellent, said a delighted Cryptora. Now, is it possible for you to shut down their sensor arrays and void shield for at least 60 seconds? A brief review of the options presented within the connections later. I think I can. Very well, please do after my countdown. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Cease all sensors and void shield operations. My command pulse went through the link. Complying. 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 Done. Please hold that for at least 60 seconds. A timer appeared in the corner of the hologram counting down from 60 seconds. Just as it reached the 30 seconds mark, I started receiving updates with the data link. Initiating system boot up. It appears someone was restarting the systems from their end. Cease all operations. I sent back. Complying. Initiating system boot up. Another update came in. Cease all operations. I sent again. Complying. The cyber whack-a-mole scenario persisted for a while until all the outposts in the hologram feed suddenly exploded one by one in near simultaneous timing just as the timer hit 0. Looking at the montages of destruction, I suddenly understood what just happened. He had used the openings created by my authority to launch strikes at the outposts. Marvelous, simply marvelous, praised an ecstatic Cryptora as he was making a sound that was close to laughter. The heretics had made a fatal mistake. In their haste to forsake the Imperium, they did not have the time nor the expertise to hard reset all their war assets, so fundamentally all their primary assets are still subservient to your authority, he said and bowed. From the picked feed of the ruined outposts, I saw people scrambling out of the buildings and followed by more explosions. Though the images were quite small since they were taken from a distance and cramped into a composite display, my transhuman perception could still pick up the distinct impressions of humans being blown to bits. I had just unwittingly become a key component for a military operation that resulted in mass killings. The carnage continued on the feed for a while until it was abruptly cut off, but I could still somehow see it, my mind perfectly recreating the scenes of human body parts flying everywhere. With that done and confirmed, I humbly request your review on this upcoming operation. Cryptora continued as a map that must have been the front line appeared in the hologram. We will lure the heretics into a decisive engagement and... The Dominus talked and talked until I cut him off. Crypto, I said, noticing my change of mood. He stopped. My body started trembling slightly and the world slowed. Thought acceleration activated without prompt. Is this rage or fear? But this is weird. Why is my thinking process not clouded with this amount of emotion? And why was I feeling confused if we were just killing heretics? I had been used as a weapon and it bothered me more than I expected. The ground seemed to shake as my inner feelings blurred, but it was tempered by the cold logical side of my situation analysis. I soon realized the situation of my helplessness. I was so helpless without the people around me at this point in time, so boundaries have to be set. That's all I can do for now. I closed my eyes again and pushed down my emotions and planned my words. Thank the throne for thought acceleration. This would appear less than a second for Cryptora. After some deliberation, I spoke again. I appreciate your constant support and everything you have done for me, but Crypto, you have to notify me beforehand if my action will result in the loss of human lives. I delivered my conditions. The massive hologram of the Dominus kept utterly still for a few seconds before he bowed and complied. Understood. Please, continue with the previous topic, I said, so he continued with his presentation on how to draw out the rebels' main forces in a decisive clash, in which a massive trap will be sprung by using my authority to cut off their communications and turn some of their best weapons against them, thus securing a victory for the loyalists. It was a foolproof plan on paper, so cunning even the cheesy power gamers at my old gaming club would concede in its diabolical genius. But this is not a game. That means many people will die, but how many? Estimated casualties? I asked, again surprised at my voice not breaking. By my best estimation, about 150,000 frontline personnel killed, 350,000 personnel wounded or captured, 3,500 tanks, 10,000 combat vehicles, 4,000 artillery pieces and around 400 aircraft will be destroyed, came his reply. My soul squirmed at the numbers. At the same time my mind caught on the keyword of wounded or captured, so I had to make sure and asked again, would that be on both sides? That is the estimated numbers just on the heretic side, not including the over 100,000 inevitable casualties on our side and the eventual fallout affecting civilians in the millions. Cryptora answered matter-of-factly.